What's up, everybody? It's the Leo King here, and I'm kicking it with two awesome goddesses that took me out and made me receive tonight. And I think we were going to come up with all these things to talk about, but I wanted to bring up the original story tonight.
What's the original story?
That this new energy for the feminine.
Oh,
right?
We're gonna dive right in there.
Let's just dive right in there. Why don't you tell people kind of how you guys are doing it? Because I don't want to give my perspective. I want to give yours.
Yeah.
And then we want to hear yours.
And then we'll hear mine. Yeah.
You wanna go?
Sure. So right now is a really incredible time for the feminine and the masculine to come into equal roles with each other. Women harnessing their masculine and men harnessing their feminine in a really beautiful way that's balanced and equal exchange. Because right now women have more power than they've had in a really long time. And so be able to have the opportunity to nurture the masculine and allow them to feel safe and feel nurtured is really important. So tonight, Alex and I had the beautiful opportunity of taking David out to dinner, buying him a meal, enjoying, nurturing, anointing him.
Painting his face.
I got the works tonight. You know
Full
what I
goddess
mean?
treatment.
Yeah.
Which I actually didn't know I was getting because it was like,
It was a
we want to
surprise.
take you to dinner. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And then he tried to buy, and he kept insisting. And then Daniella pulled a Jedi move and swiped the check.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was our way, even though it was uncomfortable for him because he's used
It was
to
uncomfortable.
paying.
Yeah, well, it's also like men being used to this stigma, this old, outdated pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of
Playing a role.
of playing the role of feeling like they have to pay, or feeling like they have to honor the woman or the feminine in this certain way that's like that's been a pattern for a very long time. I have to provide, I have to be the caretaker, and feeling essentially subconsciously that I can't receive in this way from the feminine.
Yeah. Well, and I think kind of Alex brought it up well too when I was talking to her about it. It was like there is this weird thing of like, even in like think the feminine role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like plays the role of like, well, I'm only supposed to receive or something.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Like
The dark princess of, yeah.
But I had no idea I was even coming into that.
Surprise!
I'm just thinking, I'm like, we're all three astrologers gonna go talk astrology, which of course was like the main course.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know there was all these hidden little things going on of actual learning.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually all came together because it's the last moment of Chiron leaving Pisces, which is a surrender moment fully in life. And where you just, whatever weird stuff and everything that we've all been going through this whole decade in the 2011 to now period of Chiron and Pisces all culminated tonight. And it was interesting. It's like, I think we all have to listen to the lessons at the final, anytime a transit ends, you listen to what was the message.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last message I thought, like bing, bing, boom.
Totally.
And it felt weird for me because, like, as a guy, I'm like, and I'm a Leo with Taurus moon and Leo rising, so it's like I'm king, with the moon and Taurus, like open door and let me get that for you, and I got that. Don't even trip. I got your dinner. Don't like that's just kind of my vibe,
Mm-hmm.
Felt very weird to kind of receive it because I almost feel like guilty.
Right.
It's guilt.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Which guilt, and that's what we were talking about too, is how guilt and receiving. You and I talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the connection to guilt, is not being willing to receive whatever the situation is, whether it's me accepting a dinner or feeling guilty, like let's say your best friend's fucked up on drugs or something and like you've done everything you can and then it's like you feel guilty because finally you gotta like leave the situation.
Right.
It's like you receiving self-care for yourself to move on.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this Chiron in the last degrees of Pisces has been about sacrificing huge things in order to move forward. sacrificing a relationship, sacrificing
The ego,
letting go of old patterns.
releasing attachment.
This last week was really intense.
Yeah, and being anointed tonight with oil on my feet from Mary. Why don't you tell the story? Because where'd you get that oil?
So, years ago, I went on a pilgrimage following the trail of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. And I found myself in Egypt, Israel, southern France, all over Europe, and India. So while I was in Jerusalem, I learned the story of Mary Magdalene and anointing the feet of Yeshua with this certain oil called nard oil. It's this incredible scent. It's deeply sensual, but also really earthy. And I feel like it hits you right in the heart when you smell it.
Yeah, it's not too much.
No.
It's not too little. It's like perfect.
Yeah, it's one of like the most perfect scents there is. So Mary Magdalene came to Yeshua in all of her humility and humbleness and anointed the feet of Yeshua with this oil. And so Mary Magdalene, being this incredibly powerful, strong archetype that's like extremely misunderstood by the masses, was a huge counterpart with Yeshua and being able to help him, guide him in the activation of his light body, his Ka, to be able to do the magic that he could, to be able to essentially activate his light body so he could ascend and could come back to this plane and provide the miracles that he did. And this is another amazing example of the masculine and feminine exchange of giving and receiving, and honoring the masculine in their role and honoring the feminine in their role. Because without, like, whether it's feminine, it's just feminine and masculine energy, whatever type of relationship that looks like, it doesn't necessarily matter, because we all have those within us. But they are so necessary in being able to activate all parts of our being.
Yeah. Both are seeds. And it's like not one has to have the other. So it's like there's no way to say one trumps the other one. It's impossible. If that makes sense.
They're just different.
Yeah.
They're just different energies. And one is not better than the other. They just activate in different ways or express themselves differently. But they both need each other deeply in order to be whole.
Well, and especially we were talking about anointing. It's for kings and queens and royalty, and that's what they did too. Was there's this ceremonial element of connecting with, not only using the oils to kind of, I think in a physical way, connect you with the earthly element, a spiritual element of the ceremony, and then kind of this other weird, I don't even know what it is, but it is kind of a christening moment of like allowing you to receive the oil in yourself and in your body, and having somebody give it to you to kind of give you the energy and say you are royal. Which I think royalty is changing anyway, since the star Regulus is in Virgo now, but that's a whole other story. Where the new royalty is service. Right? It's not about
to be touched and seen and worshipped in a non-sexual way. Is so foreign to us that
to receive touch in a non-sexual
way. And it's powerful. Like just watching you do that was powerful
because it's so intimate. And but it's not. But it doesn't mean intimacy has to be sexual.
Yeah, because people might see on my Instagram it happening and be like, oh, this fool's just like...
Getting a foot rub.
And it's kind of funny because people might assume that, and then they'll see this video and they'll be like, oh, shit. Right? And that's the whole thing, is like, Virgo is service at the highest, most pure state. But it's the physical part of the pure state, where Pisces is the non-physical pure state. And she has the wheat because she has to harvest it, but there's a lot behind harvesting. It's more than just like going to a farm and going to the field and then gathering the wheat. Servicing and harvesting is, I mean, the word harvest can do it in so many ways, but it is also a service element of just doing it and doing it all is, I think what, even as you were talking about, like the whole Mary story, or whether you go this whole Christ story, or you can go into all these different religious elements,
Totally.
or even outside of religion, just go into Egyptian or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything comes down to this kind of higher role of service, although I think it was always kind of like, well, we're up here doing the service for these lower people here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The service now is everyone's on the same plane.
Mm-hmm. Same playing field.
Like, so there's nobody that's better than another person doing the service. That everybody's being anointed in their own, and I think king and queen might be a bad term nowadays, but maybe it's just their divine, there's masculine and feminine being thrown around, but it's just that divine being in yourself, having the service of somebody else see it within you,
The
and
archetype.
receive it, and actually own it, is a powerful thing.
Well, it's also seeing each other as human to human.
Yeah.
Like seeing each other, like I am a human and you are too, and we are equal.
Yeah.
And also seeing that divine spark that is in me is also in you. It's like, we're getting back to the namaste.
Yeah.
Like the light that I see in me is the light I see in you. And being able to honor from that place and to give from that place of selflessness, essentially.
Absolutely.
And just being able, like when you're talking about servicing the land and the harvest, it's like the farmer listens to the earth, like looks at the soil and is like, oh, what does the soil need? What nutrients are missing? Like what seeds are the best seeds? Are they heirloom? Are they this? Are they that? Like what are the best genetics? Like listening to every little part and making the best conditions possible so that the crops can flourish. And that's true service, when you're really listening and coming from that pure place of, I want this to become beautiful.
Right.
True Virgo.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
Totally.
if you get too deep into all the little stuff, like once you already have the formula
Right.
and it works, that's the whole thing about Virgo, and it works, then just keep doing that formula every day. Like go look at like a restaurant today that like does well. It's not like they keep changing up every day. Like, okay, today I think you should cook this a little bit 2 minutes longer, and I think that all the waitresses and the waiters need to do this. If you keep doing too much in Virgo in service,
Right.
then it all kind of becomes the part of all Virgos we don't like.
So now we get to talk
Right.
about boundaries.
Well, I think that's why Libra comes out to Virgo, is to find the balance of it. Right, and that's where, after the system works, then you can chill out for a second
Not getting
and
too
weigh
fussy.
out. Okay, now something works. How do we make this, work for all people? And is this partnership gonna work? Am I in this business of the service, whether it's a restaurant, we're using an example? Do I find peace in this or not? It works. That doesn't mean necessarily peace or true connections gonna come. That's where Libra judges it all before it moves into Scorpio and knows, oh God, I gotta commit to that all the way. And then, it's like, I gotta give it all. And, so if you follow the cycle of astrology, it'll always teach you very simply that just go around the zodiac, the 12 signs, But Alex, what do you feel like for you? You see the end of Chiron with Pisces into Aries. Since you are an Aries rising.
I mean, I can speak from experience that it's been stirring up a lot of old patterns, health stuff, a lot of karmic stuff, a lot of cyclical issues that have been a problem for a long time. And this Virgo moon that's coming in on Tuesday in a couple days, I said this in my forecast today, it really feels like sweeping the porch after a long rain and kind of sweeping the debris that have gotten cluttered, and this kind of stagnation and this pain and fear and feeling lost, because it's the last degrees of Pisces, so it's kind of like feeling forgotten by God or having to sacrifice certain things in order to align with the path, because Venus is conjunct Saturn. So it's kind of this clearing of all of this kind of gnarly emotional stuff that's been stirred up while Chiron prepares to leave.
Which it's leaving right now.
Yeah, I know.
Hallelujah.
But I think it felt good leaving today. I don't know. I felt like
I feel it leaving right now.
I do. It feels lighter.
Yeah.
Feel the movement.
but I think Chiron in Aries is okay, I left everything for what I want to go towards. And now Chiron in Aries is like, well, okay, you want it. Is it really, like, what's the stuff that you maybe isn't working that you like, or you have to tweak it, or maybe you got to scratch it off. So good example is Aries moves, or Pisces moves from the feet, which these were annoying things today, right? And so now we're back to the head, okay? And I'm
Both
wearing
were
all
anointed.
this crazy stuff right now. You know what I mean? Right? So I'm going to get us right. So I'm going to use this as an example. So the head, right? So they put on what the tribal markers, right? So Chiron in Aries is like, yeah, this looks really good. And then it kind of goes in the mirror. The second time it goes, actually, I don't know if I like this looking all weird. And then I'm going to use a Sprite can for an example, right? Soda companies change their branding and their imagery of the can a lot, right? They're like, okay, it's kind of feeling outdated. It doesn't feel right with the time. It doesn't feel, we're going to rebrand the identity look, right? Because then the brand looks old or whatever. If you look in the 70s, when Chiron was in Aries, cars were freaking weird and funky and trying things, and people were wearing crazier clothes and bell bottoms and expressing their identities in the weirdest way. So we're all going to be putting on, I mean, I'm on Chiron and Aries now, wearing tribal markers.
Who would have thought?
I didn't even think about that.
Right?
That's really funny.
Okay, like, I'll look back at this video, like, after Chiron leaves Aries in the next 7-8 years, and I'll be like, remember that weird identity moment? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, we were talking about trends tonight, too, in the spiritual community, and I think, like, clothing companies like Guess, or all these people are going to come out with, like, you know, some new trendy, and probably in the spiritual community, like, because if you look at the hippie movement in the 60s with Chiron and Pisces at the end, that was the real, like, hippie, like, you know, real together in the fields. And then the 70s tried to do it, but it ended up being like in parking lots with your car smoking a joint, right? So it continued, but the identity shifted so much. And then, you know, it kind of got a little funky. You know, it didn't really kind of know how to identify itself. And that's why you saw so many dramatic shifts in the 70s, you know, of like, whoa, like, you know, like the short ties, like to like baby blue, to then like orange couches. You know what I'm talking about? Like it just really went like, that's Chiron and Aries. We're all about to come into that.
Yeah, I think it's about being bold, and with the full moon in Virgo trining all of the Capricorn, it is being bold in the direction of long-term goals and commitments, and taking a step forward in a way that might feel weird or uncomfortable, but that's kind of what we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Minimalists are gonna be tripping.
Screw it.
like white couch, like one like little thing, you know, like that was 80s. That was like Chiron Taurus, like in the 77, and it, you know, or in the 70s, late 70s was Chiron Taurus. And it kind of started to move into that whole, you know, ooh, this needs to look a little bit like baller, and that was cocaine and like mirrors in the house, like in near, it was very like weird, like value, like gosh, like in the 70s, like it was actually like you looked rich, like did you guys ever watch Boogie Nights?
A long time ago.
You never saw Boogie Nights? With Burt Reynolds and Dirk Diggler was Mark Wahlberg. It's the movie about porn. And when they go to his house in the 70s when he does porn, like he's a baller just because he's got like the cool shag carpet and like the cool house with a pool, like, but it's not like about like this kind of godly thing. Chiron Aries doesn't really do all like the god. It's just like who's kind of bold and stepping into like he's got a cool identity. He's got a cool jacuzzi that he just kind of, even though it's just a barrel basically, like it's like that kind of stuff. Whereas like Chiron and Taurus comes up and it's like, oh, I gotta like prove my worth by like I've got the most weirdest glass, and then think of Scarface, right? Like like it's like, oh, he puts up the whole like I gotta have a weird tiger in the background, like that makes me feel valuable and it's really rich, right? And that's why Chiron and Taurus kind of left people into this weird healing through money. But what was the last 10 or 8 years? People felt their healing through some really weird, going through cycles in themselves, spirituality, which anybody who's fake in the spiritual community basically will be seen because they can't heal there anymore, right? Like they're going to go into the Aries world and be like, what, actually I think it's like this couch that makes me feel me or something. I don't know. So it's gonna be a weird time, and I think we're gonna, especially because it's like the 2020s coming and how technology and stuff, we're gonna see this just weird look at life and visual look and individuals' visual look that's gonna blow people's minds so fast. Like that's where you're gonna start to see like people wearing the glasses with the phones and like and then it's gonna go back to kind of that weird 70s like vibe, which
like
makes
that boho hippie kind of chic, which we're already seeing. And it was interesting because in the 70s it lasted longer than the 80s, which shifted so quick. Because Chiron, after it leaves Aries, starts to go through the signs faster. So, like, you saw the Taurus kind of the end of the 70s, cocaine kind of weird thing, and then the 80s, and then it gets into Gemini, and then you see this really extreme kind of different way of everybody's kind of all over the place, And then, by the time you get to the 90s, you get to Cancer, where it's like really... all that just slowed. It was like, no, let's get back to, and that was also Saturn in Capricorn. There was this very major like the first Bush, right? Like president, like things kind of went out of that, and it was almost like weird if you weren't. It went back to like normal, and it went to weird peach lamps, and like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I was like, what? It was like, and I remember that period. Like, pastels. It was just kind of okay, like So it's cool because Chiron Aries brings out it for a long time to experiment with the weird kind of Play-Doh of Chiron. Of it all. So I think it'll be cool because if you notice, the 70s kind of. That 69 through 76 of Chiron and Aries was a long, kind of that 70s show for a long time. Doesn't really does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's what I think is going to be the most interesting. Because when it's on the opposite side, like Libra and Scorpio, it's like a year, 2 year out. Like, so you don't really see it as long. Which is kind of interesting.
I feel like with all the Pisces we've just gone through too, with all of the spirituality that's been like opened up within so many of us, Chiron coming into Aries is going to be a lot of that integration of that spiritual nature with the ego, of like how will this ego decide to express itself now that it's gained all of this spiritual momentum? Like, what in the ego needs to shift and change? And I think, and that's going to be huge for so many of us.
It is. I think too, because Chiron humbles people very gnarly.
Well, yeah, I mean, the egos, our egos need to be humbled.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was just thinking. Is like, you know, on Instagram and everything, like, there has been this explosion of this whole bohemian spiritual movement, but then it's like, okay, then what? You have 130,000 followers. What are you using your platform for other than promoting your image that's actually of service? Like, I'm not calling anyone out, but it's just like that. It's time for that now. You built your platform. You've adorned yourself. You've stepped into your spiritual awakening. That's amazing. But I think we're all kind of like, we got it. We got the point. Cool. Now what? What do you
That was
do
totally
with it?
Uranus Aries. Like, just get it out there and do something crazy and get attention quick. But now the stimulation is going into Taurus, where it's like, okay, I follow this person and I see it, but like, is I getting anything out of this?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
And is it making people feel good?
Right.
Is it making people feel good to
tools
see
to
that
do
over and
something.
over and over again? Like, so.
So it's just, that's the thing too, is like that Fire Festival, right? That's one of the biggest documentaries right now on Netflix about how that guy got all those Instagrammer like models. They took all those videos out there in the Bahamas, got Pablo Escobar's thing. You know, he got all these investors. All those people came out there and it didn't even happen, and then they all got screwed over, and it was like gnarly. Like Uranus and Aries kind of, I think, was like, throw pasta on the fucking wall and see if it fucking, you know, get quick attention, bold attention, and then see if it works. Uranus and Taurus now is going to be like, well, let's see if you really got the backing of the power of the value, and it's going to do something. Which
strong
can be,
foundation.
Yeah, which is kind of, you know, weird because people who really did well with Uranus and Aries, and if they do well with Uranus and Taurus, they can really go far. We saw guys like Hitler take it really far. Because if I was watching some documentaries lately, and so in the Uranus Aries transit, when he was losing, he was like taking pictures of himself and how to speak, how he would look like he was going to speak. Like he was playing around with it all before even, right?
Really?
And so there's a lot of people who have played around with all this, but what are they going to do with it in Taurus, you know? And he was a Taurus, so I think it was a little bit more easier for him to kind of, he had Mars and Venus in Taurus, he had a lot of Taurus, you know? So it was like, it all got,
right.
But I think for people it'll be like, okay, you've thrown pasta on the wall. You know, is it good pasta? I mean, as a bachelor, that's what we do as bachelors. I don't know if y'all ladies know, but like, when we make pasta, if it's done, we literally do that. We like pick out a piece and I throw it on my back wall. I'm like, it's good.
I've heard that trick.
Al dente.
I've never tried it.
Al dente. It's ready to go. If it falls off, I'm like, no, it's not ready.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
No idea.
That shit works. So, but you know, I think it's gonna be a wild moment because Uranus and Chiron followed each other in 2010 and 11. So we're seeing this again because Uranus now in its cycle and Chiron are gonna meet and get closer to a conjunction point, which 50 years ago, when it was in Pisces, it was Saturn opposing Chiron, and Uranus and Pluto were opposing Chiron, okay? And it was Saturn and Chiron together. That's always a fast thing. This time, we are building up for Chiron, Uranus. So we all three were born with Uranus and Chiron in opposition, right? And that lasted all through the 70s, mainly 80s, 90s, like it. Now we're going to see Chiron come to the orbit where Uranus orbit is. And that's going to be a weird one, because there's two parts of Chiron. There's where Chiron by the Saturn line gets more of this physical, because remember, Chiron sits between Saturn and Uranus orbit. So it's in the middle of reality and the subconscious, and that's why it's so weird. It sits in the middle. That's why it's kind of formulated as physical but not physical, right? So when it goes onto one area where it was to the 60s and all the way to this transit that's beginning now, was more where the sun was heating it up, and it got found in 77 after it had Saturn in it, were close, and when it went into Taurus, we found it in 77 because it was able to be seen, because it was like, wait, what's this thing popping up with a microscope, telescope by Saturn, because they always are looking at Saturn, right? Because the last planet you can see with your eyes, so telescopes always look at Saturn. What's this thing that just popped up? Oh, wait, whoa, Chiron, right? 2060, oh my gosh. Okay, now it's going to be where Uranus is. It's coming closer to Uranus. So Chiron, Uranus, and then the world and the healing of the world is what this next 2 decades are going to be about. And it's going to be on the opposite side, where Chiron, when it's on the side it was the Saturn energy, it actually it steams off its ice. Now it's going to go to the Uranus energy and get colder, because its orbit goes wide, like it's not like perfect. It goes really bigger. And when it goes to this other side, and now it's going to gain ice, and it's going to join with Uranus that's colder, and be more about subconscious weird shit, which is what we have been beginning to start to feel since, I would say, the 2000s, when Chiron-Uranus opposition started to move to Chiron in the waning period to meet up with the conjunction of Uranus. And we are now coming into the Chiron-Uranus, getting really close, since, right, like Uranus was in Aries in 2010, and then Chiron came in to Pisces 2011, and then 2012 was finally kind of when Uranus was already fully in, and now Chiron was in Pisces. Now we're seeing it within less than 2 weeks. Both of them are fully ingressed into their new signs. So the next cycle, they'll get even closer and then closer, and there we're going to see in our lives here Chiron and Uranus conjunct, which nobody has seen here that's even watching this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And this is where our subconscious selves and our higher dimensional frequencies are going to go through some really weird changes. And it's might not be like the 70s, like I said, so physical, as that was, more Saturn Chiron. This is going Uranus Chiron now, which is much more out of this world stuff in our own subconscious souls, that becomes more of where the work is, more higher dimensional stuff that sometimes is not seen but only understood in the blink of an eye. So yeah, it's going to be it'll be a little both, but it's going to be pretty wild.
It's kind of like clearing out so many of these subconscious patterns that so many of us have carried on generations and generations and generations through our lineage, through our bloodlines, through our cultural experiences, our cultural community, and really, and the conditioning and programming, essentially. So it's really getting into the subconscious to deprogram and reprogram systems that work better for the whole world, not just us, but for the collective. Because, it's going to be a massive purging of the collective consciousness. And it's also like, when we look at our minds and our brains, it's a supercomputer. And they're all running on, for example, software programs from the 80s that are super outdated. And it's all right, time for an upgrade, software update, time to recode or make a whole new program that will better serve all of us.
It's almost like Chiron is embedding a virus into the old programs.
Mm-hmm. It's like system failure.
Correct. So it's actually a virus to get rid of. That's the only way to destroy the program,
the old system.
You know, because what happens when you get a virus? You go, I gotta redo the whole computer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need to wipe it out, and then I need to, and then okay, it's better now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just thought about this too. Is that we just had in 2018 the Chiron Saturn square. It was actually end of 17, very end, when Saturn was at the end of Sag, it squared Chiron and Pisces, and so that was the waxing square from the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming towards the Saturn Chiron opposition in the next decades, okay? And so people are going to be born with the opposite of what we have here. They're going to be born with Chiron Uranus opposed Saturn in that one period of time. And that is totally opposite. And that will be the opposition of Chiron waxing opposed Saturn. You can also look at it the other way too, but that's going to be pretty crazy when you'll see alignment-wise, because of the transitions of the 60s. We are going to see a similar element over these next couple decades that will be opposite, flipped of it. But finally, with the galactic shift to 2012, with what's going on with these big Saturn-Pluto cycles that are happening in Capricorn, this really is the new Earth and the new world going. Like, it's for sure. Like, no matter how many angles you want to look at it, and if you're in doubt for it, like, go do your math. Like, it's going down. Because Chiron and Uranus, I think, are way more powerful together than in opposition. Because it really is this Saturn, when it opposed Uranus in 66, it was with Pluto, with Chiron on Saturn. That was gnarly. We're never going to see that in our lives again like that. So it's really moving in the right place now. And this Aries transit, because Chiron is closer to Uranus now, is in Aries, saying it better be doing something good with yourself or the world, opposed to it just being your own reality. It's now this reality, other realities. And how funny we're bringing up Bringers of the Dawn tonight, and now it's talking about the shifts that take place in this reality affect the other realities.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is such a big deal now.
Other timelines.
Mm-hmm. All the timelines merging.
Dimensions, yeah.
Gnarly, dude. Guys, you can just start going to dinner and the lady's gonna pick up the check.
The tables are turning.
The tables are turning, and then you just, like, they hang out and they put a bunch of tribal marker on your face.
Uh-huh.
You know? So, not saying, like, it's gonna just switch roles or something, I don't know, but, like, it's equal now. Like,
Exactly.
Coming
like,
into balance.
it's like, and then there's times when dudes can be like, yo, I'm the one buying, or whatever, I don't know. I think it's about just ease and flow now.
And
like, it's not like
expectation.
Yeah, no expectation.
Coming into balance, releasing expectation that because this person is this gender or this color or this whatever class, social, economic system, releasing expectation that they should look, behave, act, feel a certain way about something. So it's just coming into a more equal stance and moving from the heart, essentially. Like, I want to do this for you. I want to honor you. I see you as the person that you are and the gifts that you're doing, like, that you're giving out into the world. And people need to be seen and people need to be heard.
And I think it's a big dogma removal.
Right.
Because I'm doing in my head math right now. So Jupiter, this is going to trip you guys out. So Jupiter is in Sag. So by the time it gets to Taurus, okay, which is what, like 6 years, okay?
Yeah.
In 6 years, it'll be when, Uranus is going into Gemini, so it's 7 years, but, like Uranus will be coming to meet up with Jupiter in air signs, trining when Pluto is in Aquarius, and then you're going to be having Chiron, which is going to be meeting up closer to that conjunction point, and then you're going to have Saturn at that time, which will be finishing Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries, sextiling. It's going to be beautiful. It's like 2026, 2027, there's so much stuff building, and like these trines between Pluto, Neptune will be in Aries. There'll be this fire, air, outer planet stuff mixed with the Chiron, cycle and Uranus. And so really the 2020s are but I think that people see it now and it's like, get on the train because it really is going to get you there. And if you really, and I think that was the whole lesson of Chiron and Pisces of the last degree here to kind of round this up.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen. I think people doubt in the spiritual community, especially here in LA, because I get a lot of calls like, I can't live in LA, I can't afford it, or it's dark here, or da-da-da-da. And I'm like, that's been the times of just the whole world purging and ending. And LA's a Aries with Pluto and Saturn, or Pluto and Uranus conjunct. The last Pluto-Uranus conjunction was in Aries when LA was born.
ruled by Pisces. Astrocartography.
Oh, yeah. But it's an Aries with a moon in Capricorn and a Mars in Cancer. It's a whole T-square. So not comfortable in Capricorn, right? If you get in LA, if you can't make it to the top, guess what? You won't feel comfortable. And then with Mars in Cancer, it's like, if your identity isn't great, you're not going to be comfortable in the opposition to that moon. And then it's squaring Pluto and Uranus conjunct in Aries. I think it's also Venus in Aries, the Sun in Aries, in a major Aries, Capricorn, Cancer fuck storm. And that same fuck storm, not the exact, but with Pluto, Uranus was in square, right? Through LA through the whole decade. And what you see in the change in Hollywood, what you see in the change in what movies and content, and the projection of like what that is, and also people like not being obsessed with celebrities anymore because people are not. Like they're really realizing like,
well, Instagram's like
your story about your thing brought it up, I think, the most.
Definitely leveled the playing field a lot, which is great.
It's giving a lot of other people the opportunity to have a voice.
But I still see people here in LA struggling, like, I don't have enough followers, or blah, blah, blah. And I always tell people, I'm like, it ain't about followers, it's about whatever work you do.
It's about quality.
It is about quality.
Not quantity.
Yeah. I mean, I don't smoke weed anymore, but I remember buying, like, when I was young, like we'd get like brick weed, we'd call it, from like Mexico with seeds. It would be like if we were going like on a trip, we were like young, so we'd just buy. When you're young, you don't have a lot of money, right? When you're like 19, so you're like, okay, here's $40, and then we get a huge amount of it and just roll a bunch of joints. But it's like, okay, sure, you might have a lot of it, but it's crap. But like I remember, I'd be like, oh, I could have just spent my $20 and got a fucking gram of the bomb nug. And just smoked one hit of that and been high for it all day instead of smoking this crap that I actually kind of feel sick. I remember feeling like I've smoked so much of this shit. And I'm like not even really high, and it tastes weird in my mouth. My mouth is just like permanently cotton mouth, but like sticky of like gross brickweed. I don't know why that came up.
Pick a card. It's a good analogy.
Oh, well, I don't know. I told you I don't pick.
Oh, you want me to do?
Yeah, I don't pick my own cards. I don't.
The golden deck.
That's my favorite deck.
This deck is amazing.
So while Alex is shuffling, she picked cards for people at where we had dinner, for the waitress and the waiter. And the waiter, he pulled a card, and she goes, yeah, let him know. And I didn't, his energy wasn't really ready to kind of feel everything, so I just gave him a little. And then the waitress like ran over like, oh, pull one for me. And then she pulled one, and then all of us kind of like jumped on her because she was open, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all felt her energy,
Yeah.
like,
Instantly.
damn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we pulling for?
Let's just pull for the collective.
Pull for the collective. You pull. Hopefully, they're not gonna be stuck wearing tribal masks 24/7.
That's
kind of fun, though.
tight.
It's fun.
Maybe not 24/7.
Oh,
I know.
the Seven of Swords reversed. Actually, it's a good thing. If it was upright, it would have sucked. This is us getting rid of our fears and our worries of, one, I think it's the hijacking of like our own, like our ego feels like it's got to protect things that it doesn't want to lose. Like whether it's identity stuff or anything in life, right? But I think the Seven of Swords, because it is kind of this creepy dude who like is piecing out of the camp with a bunch of shit. Like he obviously is shady. But with it reversed, I think it's saying like, this is you inside getting rid of your own shady energy of like you trying to protect things and like to not get taken away from you by releasing totally of like, if it gets taken away from me, I'll go get another thing. Or there's nothing, actually the Seven of Swords to me reverses, everything in me is sovereign, nothing can be taken away. Right? No shady character, no I think kind of at the end of Pisces is like, okay, yeah, okay, you had those lovers that, you know, whether it's abuse or the traumas you went through, or, you know, the job situation that never works out, or the money situation, you know, you're sovereign. That shit cannot be taken away from you. It's not some like, I have some issue, or it always gets, you know, it's like, I think Seven of Swords reverse is saying like, you are sovereign. It don't matter what dark entity comes your way, what traumatic situation, what, it is all in your head of whether or not you allow to give it away to them and feel like, I can't lose this. You can't lose your sovereign soul.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the power shift of the next collective here. Is like, people are like all like tripping on TV, like, who's president? Who's in this? What? Because this is going to affect my life. It's like, no.
Right.
You're already giving away your sovereignty to all these other things. Instead of just like, nothing can be taken from my sovereign in all ways from the universe, God, and the collective. If everyone was in that space, then if the collective felt sovereign, nothing could be taken away from it. It would not feel so weird, because there's an imbalance of people who feel sovereign and people who don't, and people who let trauma in the past and things think that that's gonna always be a gaping hole in their ship that will constantly bring in water, when really there's, you know, Titanic ain't going down. When we were laughing, we were talking about, I thought Uranus and Aries was like very Titanic, like unsinkable ship. Fucking week out.
Oh,
It's not funny.
It's not funny, I know, but it's a funny analogy.
It's a good analogy.
We'll use Jack, right? You know,
hypothetical
Titanic,
ship.
The hypotheticals, well, the story of Jack too, like, poor dude, like, hooks up, gets the hot chick, makes it up to the top deck, and then I never understood that movie when he's in the water with her and he puts her up in the thing, and then it's like, chick didn't want to share space with him or something, like, and then she had no problem, just like, I'll never let you go, but she let him go.
Oh my god.
I never understood that. But so he got kind of, we'll just say that the Titanic sank with Jack. He got a little, but Uranus, like, ooh, this is exciting. It brought me up to a new high level and then spat me out.
Okay. I want to know what you're thinking about this week. Venus conjunct Saturn and Pluto, Capricorn.
With the South Node coming
With
up.
the South Node, Capricorn.
I think it's going to be interesting because Mercury goes shadow right when it passes Neptune. Because this Mercury retrograde coming is going to be at 29 Pisces, retrograde back to 16 Pisces, and it's going to stop on Neptune and go direct when Neptune then goes 17, and then Mercury goes over again. The reason why I'm saying this first is because at the exact same time that Venus is going to be entering in with Pluto in the South Node is during Mercury shadow. And so, and where there's going to be a lot of Mercury retrograde, Piscean, things that we aren't able to see right now clearly, that Venus is going to learn from Pluto the truth. And it's going to be hardcore truth in our projects, in our relationships, things that we aren't seeing, things that we are amiss from, things that we are delusionally going, yeah, for sure. And then Mercury goes to the 29th degree and then goes, and it's fall. Remember, Mercury's at fall. Venus is at not its favorite place either in Capricorn, because it really just can only follow truth of direction that's going to get it where it's going to go, or Venus will fail, right? Like, and it is kind of bound by the chains of, the Saturnian realms.
Right.
So I think that this is going to be a major truth revealing that will throw people off, because at the exact same time as that's happening, we're dealing with Chiron Aries now, which means that what we think of what we want is going to not show up exactly the way we thought it would. It's like our ideas in our mind of Piscean and Chiron and Aries is like, oh yeah, like it looks, I know what it's gonna look like, and then no. And then you have to remember it's also Venus opposing the North Node, and so it's going to be in conflict with what our emotions and where we really want it to go is. It's like, no, like our emotions really want to go to this plane, and Uranus is still squaring the nodes, right? And there's that last part of Uranus finishing at the 29th degree during this Venus cycle, which then Venus the week following is going to square Uranus at the last degree of Aries, and Chiron, and then Venus at Capricorn, where Mars just did the retrograde last year with the South Node, and where Mars stationed and went direct. So Venus is now going to enter into where Mars's zone is in Capricorn, where the shadow period and the direct motion from the retrograde at Capricorn is. So the feminine is entering into where the masculine just did all of its craziest work. And so the energies from June 26th to, the end of basically September of 2018, Venus is about to try and go understand. And that was a neurotic period with Uranus retrograding at that time, Mars, Uranus squaring, the nodes in the middle of that exact. We're about to enter Venus to try and basically go through a battlefield, warfield that happened, and try and pick up all the pieces and make the best of it and make the right choices so that we don't go through stuff that happened, the buildup from even the Uranus-Taurus cycle that started. Like, really, the end of the whole 2018 cycle that started in May. This is now Venus trying to get out of that crazy place and understand, because there was some crazy shit that went on there. That was gnarly shit. And that's what this South Node transit is about with Venus, is, oh, holy shit. Not only do I have to now value-wise, reassess, relationship-wise, project, get back on, where the truth track is going to reveal itself with Mercury in its shadow and very deeply into subconscious and, you know, not seeing it all like the right way. And then Chiron and Aries being all like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, this looks all funky, right? It doesn't look normal. I just feel like I'm looking at this as deeper, as this is going back. Everything keeps going back because Mars, until it comes into Leo to cut off the eclipse stuff from 2017. And remember, Mars hasn't been to really come out of the eclipse cycle of the Leo and Aquarius cycle to cut that energy off. That's what happens with Mars. When Mars crosses eclipse points, especially the ones that we've had over the last couple of years with this transition of Uranus and Chiron and the Mars retrograde with the South Node and even the Neptune South Node of the end of 2016 election, that's where Venus is trying to get through, and Mars is trying to get to the actual points of where these things happen eclipse-wise to understand it, move us past that point. So this beginning of 2019, this, you know, this 7-8 months until it's, or 6-7 months, that's right now from the end of February here, once Mars gets in Leo and passes all this stuff, it really will all be done. Venus will be passed, Venus will be in a good spot, you know, like Mars, there's no retrogrades of Mars and Venus this year, and that's very rare. And they're coming to and Venus now has to, she's going into the underworld with Pluto too, right? So she's going into a Capricornian underworld with the South Node, and it actually is real. She's been going through since 2008, but not with the South Node. That means it's like detrimental of like, oh my God, I'm actually experiencing this fully, and I do not want to, I have to realign without losing myself. And I think delusion with the sun in Pisces, with Mercury going through it, Mercury's going to have to literally drown. Mercury's going to drown and have to gasp for air. And then right when it's drowning, Neptune moves forward and it can't even catch up with the second slowest planet, Neptune. And then it catches up to Neptune and goes in the storm again. It's almost like a hurricane just sits on Mercury, and then the hurricane moves for a second, and then Mercury goes, but the only way to go forward is I have to go back into the hurricane again.
Yeah.
And that's all coming up here in March and into April. So I think it's all now leading to a new story right now, but the storm is going to be gnarly. And it's going to be a gnarly storm of new ways to see, is this really all on track? And projects, relationships, that's what Venus and Saturn is too. And with the node and with Pluto, like this is the dark, hardest zone of the zodiac. This is it right here. These guys don't mess around.
Yeah.
And the naive of Mercury, which is then squaring Jupiter at the same time that Venus and the node conjunct, is a total naive belief of like, oh, I need no problem. And Jupiter's at home. Neptune and Jupiter are squaring still, and Jupiter's in shadow. Mercury's going to be in shadow in the square to Jupiter. So the problem with that is Jupiter is in its home sign, so we believe everything's kosher. When Mercury in fall is offering poor data, and actually Jupiter believes it, but then the data will be retrieved and Jupiter will be like, holy shit, you gave me wrong data. Like, and I believed it. And that's going to be hard for people in April, because when Mercury's going to square Jupiter again, and then have all the data, and after drowning, and then Jupiter will be retrograding in April at 24 degrees. Like, there's going to be this major fuck period here for the next 2 months. And Venus will be going through the Mars retrograde zone. And the Sun and Mercury did their Cassini point at 9 Aquarius. So that point from 26 node of Capricorn to 9 Aquarius, where Venus is going to go, is major. There's been so much conjunction points, retrograde shadow points, south node points, all doing Mars-Venus stuff here. This is that zone. While Mercury, Jupiter, while Uranus entering to Taurus, while Chiron entering Aries too. Holy fuck. There you are.
Wild.
While the sun's in Pisces, amplifying Neptune's rays of intensity. And the sun and Neptune, when they conjoin in 2 weeks, is when Mercury goes retrograde. So, storms are everybody's so funny. They're like Game of Thrones right now, like winter's coming, you know, it's all that shit. You know, it'll probably be cool. And I'm not talking shit because I like that show. All I'm saying though is like, the show ain't shit compared to the show that Pisces season will be. Pisces season will be the biggest storm we've ever seen in our lives. Probably literal. And I also predict in my 2019 astrology guide that gas prices are going to reach the lowest they've ever reached ever. Or they could reach the highest ever. It might go, or we could see both, I said. But you will see, if you've been seeing gas prices go lower, 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 Pisces rules of fuel. To have Mercury basically go to the lowest point that it can. And we saw the highest rates with Jupiter and Uranus at the last degrees when it went into Pisces, it left Pisces and it went into Aries. So now we're seeing the opposite. Now we're seeing Mercury in its fall position and Neptune here. So you're going to see fuel prices just go and plummet to save economy aspects of what's going on geopolitically with Uranus entering into Taurus, and money and exchange and things are going in the EU. And does Brexit happen? Does all that stuff? Fuel prices, America's producing the most oil and fuel. You're going to see crazy. It's going to be a storm. And you have Mars in Taurus, which is slowing everything down to say, before you jump, is this the best thing for you? Because Mars is going to be trining Saturn and trining Pluto and trining that and basically embedding you in whatever the best is or lack thereof. And Uranus is going to be in Taurus when Mars is doing that stuff, and it will literally make or break you, because Taurus literally is like when you leave the car lot and you didn't get the sunroof. You cannot return it and get a sunroof. You have to lose money, sell a car, lose the value, and buy, and so you lose. And you lose money, and you feel like shit, and you don't even feel good driving the car, because all you can think about all day is like, shit, I got that fucking sunroof. So this is where people have to really go, before I jump, is this all, am I getting everything? Am I getting the whole lot of my value, of my full, does this feel like it's just going to build me the best life ever? Or is this just going to take me to a place that's going to teach me the hardest lessons and my tools and all that shit, and I'm not going to like it? And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to feel good at all. And it's for the result, too, of, which I believe, especially with the North Node of Cancer and the South Node of Capricorn, it's like, is it all because you emotionally are so invested in things to make you feel safe, when really these tough choices of South Node, Saturn, and Pluto really are like, you know, look at the reality, because the safe place is facing the toughest choices in reality that are kind of cold. Instead of just trying to go instant to warm and comfort and not facing the hard choices, because then you face the hardest shit ever. And that's what the solar eclipse that happened at 15 Capricorn was about. you know, and you have to remember that when Chiron is at 0 Aries now, it's making very weird aspects now. It really is now entering into the Pluto-Uranus square zones. It's entering into a whole another cardinal energy that is finishing the Pluto-Uranus cycle of, I mean, literally you can look at 2012 to 2015, the peak, but it really was 2010 to 2019. 9 years, and Chiron now is being thrown into the Pluto-Uranus square. And so, did you learn through the last 9 years of neurotic and craziness to throw yourself into more neurotic craziness, or did you learn how to identify it and plan to go to a better road that's not neurotic and crazy, that's actually in alignment and can get you where you really want to go, opposed to, I'm just going to go back and play my old pattern or go do something or whatever. So it's tough choices. That Venus, Saturn, and Pluto shit is tough. Because it's very risky, because the risk is without control of your desires. And learning to, let them go. And go where this higher calling is, and I think that's the end of Uranus and Aries, which is this independent knowing of your own road that isn't connected through what other people say, what relationships say, what your job tells you. It's just you go into the fog fully, because on the other side is gold. It's like the 4-leaf clover following the rainbow. You have to trust that it's there, and the pot of gold's there. But it's you're not. It's there's clouds, and it's oh wait, it's easier because it feels like there's sunlight over here, and then you go that way, and then actually the clouds move over there, and you miss the whole fucking gold.
It's it feels familiar, it feels safe, but it's about taking a road less traveled.
Yeah.
And I think a really big key element is just going to be trusting the path in front of you and putting one foot in front of the other, even though you're in the fog and you can't see, but you need to trust your feet. You need to trust yourself in the process, even
it's
if it's
a UFO
terrifying.
ride, and nobody's gonna hold your hand in the UFO, and you have to go into it yourself, kind of thing.
I like that.
That's Uranus Aries at the end, right? Oh man. And that's the problem with Uranus and Aries, is Uranus is a social sign and an independent sign. So, it is really a disconnect from the world by your own place and people and stuff, but also finding people truly aligned that are going to be tested, that have already revealed itself through the last 8 months. If it felt weird, Chiron at the end of Pisces, if it felt traumatic, if it feels really off with all the stuff that's been revealed, with all the Venus retrograde stuff and the truth and the almost trying to hold on, with the Venus Scorpio retrograde that went over the Saturn Pluto conjunction of 82 that was major in Libra, and now we have Saturn Pluto meeting in Capricorn. If you're falling into that, then Saturn Pluto by the end of 2019 will destroy everything that you build from this point forward that is not the best for you, that you knew that the universe gave all the signs, and Saturn and Pluto gave all the signs with Venus here. And so it's because by the end of the year when they conjunct, and then Jupiter enters into Capricorn as a fall position, by the way, and amplifies Saturn and Pluto for the first time since 1284. Oh my God, just it will just destroy what you've made and decimate you. And that's what I think is the scariest part. And I'm not trying to scare people. But that's what Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, and that's what Saturn, Jupiter, when Jupiter comes into a sign, it really is, all it is an amplifier. And it just expands anything. It doesn't have a, right? Because it believes in all religions, it doesn't like, its teaching lesson is to just keep blowing the balloon until it fucking pops, basically. So when you have Saturn and Pluto conjuncting for the first time in Capricorn, and more importantly, the first time in 36 years since 82, 83, in Libra, major relationship lessons of 35, 36 years that are about to hit Capricorn, and whether it's true alignment or complete destruction of your path and your sovereign path, this is going to be amplified heavily. And then the eclipses are happening again at the beginning of 2020 with those conjunctions. So it's going to be, this Venus is going to reveal it all this week. And it's like whether people are going to like listen to it and learn Saturn Capricorn stuff of like, no. Capricorn is no. Cancer is yes. And we want to say yes with the North Node. And if you look at Vedic astrology, Rahu says yes all the time. Yes, 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 yes. And it's where I think in Western we need to go, but we have to learn where we have to say no and cut off, because when we say yes to something, it better be the right yes.
Exactly.
So, and that's this Mars in Taurus too, which just got over the shadow period of Uranus, where it was in Taurus. So it's also Mars at its detriment, which means what you identify with needs to take time, because in Taurus it's slow and it needs to really make sure it's beautifully built and not rushed, because if it's rushed and it feels like you're in a rush, Mars in Taurus feels like hell. Because it doesn't get comfort, it doesn't get comfortable, it doesn't get to put the Sprite like in the cup holder, it doesn't get to put the phone in your pocket or your purse, it doesn't get, to make sure that, okay, my clothes are like looking good. You literally are just like a ravaged person, just thrown into the seat and just gone, and oh, what the heck, and oh my god, and now it's spilled on me, and my phone's dead, and I don't have a charger, and oh my god, with all the crazy chaos that's coming with Mercury. The biggest, craziest Mercury retrograde of our lives is coming. Ever. Because it's going to be in with Neptune, squaring Jupiter, which they're both in their home sign squaring. And at the same time, Mars is heading towards Gemini to add to all that stuff. It's going to be gnarly. I'm excited.
I can tell.
Well, that was fun. You guys have any other things to add to end this?
I think we covered it.
It was a fun combo. Well, peace out. You can find all of our stuff on the links below, because we'll all be putting it on places everywhere. So,
thanks for watching, guys. Happy full moon in Virgo.
Yeah, that'll clean things up for like 2 days, and then
I'll take
then
it.
we go into, at least it's like before the storm. It almost is like an umbrella, and then once the moon comes into Libra, the umbrella flies away, and then the whole storm hits people.
Oh god.
So the moon in Virgo ain't gonna last long. Doesn't have a lot of support. It's just a temporary thing, because then the moon comes in Libra and squares all of
Capricorn.
Especially this week with Venus and Capricorn. So, and it's gonna square it with it on Pluto. And how much more truth can, two sides of the truth, and whether or not you really, especially because the sun's in Pisces, quincunxing over to Libra, moon, that is like, I can't make a decision, and Venus is demanding it getting demanded from Pluto and Saturn and the South Node, like in Capricorn. So it's gonna be fun. Just imagine that umbrella just.
Jeez.
Enjoy the rain coming down.
And that's Mars and Taurus too. Is like, I should have just planned for not being here with an umbrella, but maybe I should have stayed and waited for a second and made sure that storm came and then walked to where I need to go to, because I'm going to try to run. Now I'm going to get mud all over my shoes and all the planets, remember, are direct right now. And the second we come into March, man, everything starts going retrograde. And then you're basically stuck in the situation of what you chose. And none of us want to replay 2018. So
it's like, make sure you lay a really good and solid foundation with that Taurian energy, like intentionally, one brick at a time, so that when you build the rest of the house and you build that roof, the roof isn't crooked and gonna start leaking everywhere.
Yeah.
Or gonna blow away with the storm that's coming. Like, make sure it's solid.
Yeah, because the trines to Saturn and Pluto will only pay you if it's truly aligned to get you to the highest place possible. Only the best of the best. You know, like not CVS brand, like Purell, you know what I mean? Like, talking about hand sanitizer. CVS stuff, your hands get all dry. And you're like, this put some Purell on, you're like,
it's got the aloe in it.
Yeah. Some Taurus shit. Alright. Peace out.
Night, guys.
Mwah.
Love you.